Hello again, my DIY loving friends, and welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. Are you ready to transform some ordinary tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree into stunning high-end Christmas decor? Well, these budget-friendly DIYs will elevate your holiday home with some Dollar Tree festive magic. So what are you waiting for? Let's go DIY together. For this DIY, I opened 2 boxes of tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, although I end up only using 88 blocks in total, also using super glue wood glue from Dollar Tree. The first row I'm gluing is made up of 11 blocks glued side to side, to which I am going to add another 11 blocks glued directly on top of those. And please excuse my ultra deep voice on this video. I am just getting over a cold, so I'm not sounding like myself, so please bear with me. The next set is made up of 9 blocks that are glued side by side, and then another 9 blocks that we're gluing directly on top of those first 9. Next is a set of 7 blocks glued end to end, followed by 7 more glued right on top of them. Then we do the same thing with 6 blocks, gluing those side to side, and then 6 more glued right on top. Then 4 side to side and 4 more blocks on top of those. Then we're gluing 2 blocks side by side and 2 more right on top of them. Now, once all my sets are dry, and you didn't see me do this on camera, but I also glued 2 blocks sandwich style and a 3rd block over the 2 ends of that particular set, as you can see me showing you right here. That's going to be the base of our tree. I made a mixture of water and apple barrel matte white paint, which I will link for you in the description box below, and I'm going to use this mixture to whitewash all my sets of blocks. I'm also going to paint 5 single blocks that are going to be used in this tree as well. I like mixing the paint with water because you still get that white tone, but that wood grain still shows through too. And I did 2 coats of the whitewash on all of my pieces. Once the whitewash had dried, I used some folk art antique wax, which I will link for you below, and a dry brush, and I distress paint over the whitewash pieces, and not too heavy, lightly, just enough to give them a little bit of an older kind of vintagey appearance. I also painted that base piece in an all over antique wax just to make it brown. To begin assembling my tree, I glue that brown base piece to the bottom of that 11 piece wide or 22 block total set, and we do that first, as you can see me doing right here. Next, I take one of my single blocks and I glue it to the bottom of the 9 block wide piece or 18 block set. You know what I mean. I don't have to keep saying the number of blocks. It's the one that has 9 blocks across. Then I'm going to glue another single block to the bottom of that 7 block set. Then a single block gets glued to the bottom of the 6 block wide set, and I think you see the pattern here. I glue a block to the bottom of the 4 block wide set, and finally to the bottom of the 2 block wide set. I attach the bottom 3 rows of my tree together, and then I'm going to give that some time to set up, and then I'm going to combine the top 3 rows together to each other, and I'm going to give them some time to dry and to set up. I begin embellishing before combining the top and bottom of the tree. I'm using Jute twine from Dollar Tree, and I apologize for the camera angles making it difficult to see, but all I'm doing is wrapping that twine in a crisscross around the middle of each row and then wrapping it around the little single blocks that hold each row together. It sounds more complicated than it is, but we're starting at the bottom and securing the twine with some hot glue. I just wrap the twine around the bottom of the tree first, and then after I glue that top of the tree on there, I'm going to continue up with the twine to the top of the tree. It's really pretty simple. You can also spot in the back of that tree that I attached a paint stir stick to hold the tree together more securely. Lastly, I had some small wood half rounds in my stash and I will link them for you below. I painted them with some antique wax and I'm creating an alternating pattern with one round on the ends of the first row followed by one round on the top and the bottom of that jute crisscross and so on and so on. Just like some sort of rustic tree ornament. The very last thing I did was to add a painted wood star to the very top of my Christmas tree. And this is my tumbling tower block rustic Christmas tree. And it is my very first Christmas craft of the season. And I, for one, am very excited. I love the neutral and rustic, super simple charm of this Jenga block tree. Sure to be a fan favorite, especially with all of you tumbling tower block DIY lovers. Christmas is starting early. This next DIY begins with this reindeer ornament. Now, I got this one at Walmart for $1.98, but it is very similar in size to the reindeer ornament from your local Dollar Tree. Not my local Dollar Tree, because they never have this. So for my purposes, I'm using a Walmart reindeer, but you can use the Dollar Tree one. I cut the little loop off the back of the reindeer and I spray painted it with some Rust-Oleum paint and primer in flat white, which I will link for you below. I let it dry overnight. Grabbing my 91% alcohol, which I will link for you below, can only mean one thing. And yes, we are using alcohol inks. I pour the alcohol into a cup because we use the alcohol as if we were using water for watercolor paints. It's really the same concept. I am using 2 colors of alcohol ink. They are the Tim Holtz Latte and the Tim Holtz Teakwood colors, both very beautiful for wood grain effects, and I will link them for you below. I also have an assortment of cheap makeup brushes that I use for alcohol inks, and I'll link those for you below as well. Remember to always wear gloves when working with alcohol ink or you will stain your hands because they are ink. I wet a brush with alcohol and I'm going to use some drops of latte ink on the brush and then apply the ink to the reindeer all over to get a base color. Alcohol inks are made to layer and build, so we will be adding more and more drops of color either on the brush or on the reindeer directly, just pushing and spreading the color around and building it up until we get that desired depth of color that we want. I can use different sizes and shaped brushes to achieve different looking patterns within the color. And the main reason I love these inks for wood graining is because they practically paint the effect themselves. Like, you can't make a mistake and you never know what look you're really going to get, but you do know it's going to look good. Trust me, you will love this process. After I've built up several coats of the latte ink on the body of the reindeer, I then focus my attention on the antlers, and I will start by giving them a base coat of latte also, but then I'm going to be using a smaller brush and I'm going to use the much darker teakwood ink color to paint the antlers because I want them to be much darker than the rest of my deer, but I still want them to look like wood. And even though this video is sped up, you have to believe me when I tell you that getting this wood look to the reindeer is not because I have these awesome alcohol ink skills. I'm not lying when I say this wood look truly paints itself. I could not be more real with you on that. And oh my goodness, you guys, I love this reindeer so much. I'm definitely making more, and I am going to display them this holiday season. Perfect on a tiered tray or in a vignette for a table centerpiece, or I'm thinking maybe fireplace or windowsill. And beside the drying time for the spray paint, this entire project takes, no joke, 20 minutes. Look how gorgeous he is. He needs some snow. That's all that's missing, snow. For this next DIY, I started with 2 boxes of tumbling tower blocks, but really I only ended up using 92 blocks, so keep that in mind, but I did paint both the full boxes. I'm using a mixture of water and folk art antique wax, and I am going to be painting one side of all the blocks, and then both the side edges and the top and the bottom edges of all of the blocks, but I don't really need to paint the other side of those blocks. One side is really going to work fine as long as the edges are painted as well. Next, I'm using some of this faux grit matte paint in the color Camel, and I'm using a dry chip brush. I'm going to use that camel color to distress paint over the antique wax, lightening it up a bit, but not as light as it would be using a white paint. So I am giving the blocks a little bit of an aged, beat up look and giving them just a little bit more character. I've got this clear, flexible cutting mat from Dollar Tree, and I roll it up into a tall cone shape. I'm using some clear plastic packing tape to hold that cone shape together, and I'm then going to use the scissors to trim down the bottom of the cone so that then that cone will then stand upright like a tree. Using a ruler and a marker, I mark the cone with a dot at 1 1/2 inch up from the bottom so that all the blocks I attach at the dot will all be at the same height. I'm using hot glue on the inside top edge of the blocks and attaching the top of the block to the mat. I also use another block under that block as a spacer so that this whole first row of blocks will sit the same way as the subsequent rows will, while having a block under beneath it. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Just watch what I'm doing and you'll understand as we move on to the next row. I marked the blocks on the first row at 1 1/2 inch up from the bottom with a pencil, and that is where the bottom of the second row blocks are going to sit. That's how far down each of the second row blocks will go, if that's a clearer way to say that. But you can see why I needed the spacers under the first row, because that second row already has a spacer under it built in, which is of course that first row of blocks. I try to place the second row blocks kind of spaced in between the lower row of blocks, although they don't always line up perfectly every time, but that's okay. We don't need to have perfection. You see what I'm talking about. You see the look that I'm going for here. I do all the rows after that the exact same way, and I stop at 8 rows tall. At that point, although you can't really see on camera, I apologize, it's kind of cut off, but I simply use a scissors to snip off the excess cutting mat left at the top of the cone so that my cone ends at the 8th row of blocks. I felt like my tree was too rustic for these like cutesy ornaments, so I grabbed this bag of tiny little mini tree rounds I had in my stash. I'll link them for you below. I used hot glue to just randomly place the wood rounds on blocks around the entire cone tree, working from the bottom up to the top. No pattern, just randomly placed. I wasn't sure what to do at the top of the tree, so I grabbed this wood ring, like the ones at Dollar Tree, and wrapped it with some thick jute, although the jute at Dollar Tree would work just fine for this too, securing the jute in place with hot glue so that I could just place that ring at the top of the tree to hide the edge of the cut-off cutting mat. I have a Dollar Tree battery-operated push or puck light to place at the bottom inside the tree and some loose fairy lights to just loosely wrap around the outside of the tree. I also placed a Christmas floral pick at the top through the wood ring. And this is my Tumbling tower block light up Christmas tree, and I'm kind of torn on this. I liked the concept, but it's hard to get the blocks neatly attached on the cutting mat cone, and it looks a little janky. I don't know. I think it has potential. It's just not there yet. And you know the drill. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments which one of these Dollar Tree Tumbling Tower Block Christmas decor DIYs was your favorite and why. I love hearing from all of you. And if you've enjoyed this DIY video, there's another one waiting for you. Just click the link on your screen for more Medicated Housewife DIYs. Thanks for watching, and until next time, my name is Sarah, I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.